when you know whose you are, you will not spend your life trying to prove who you are. There is something security does. It removes the need to prove yourself. And when I say prove yourself, I mean show off. There's a way you feel secured and you don't need validation, because basically that is one of the reasons people show off: insecurity, the need for validation.
Welcome to Jesus Baby Movie Talk Show, a podcast where faith meets film and love takes the lead.
Hi guys, welcome to Jesus Baby Movie Talk Show and the Love O Love series once again. Thank you for joining with me up until now. I am grateful and I trust that you've been learning. I trust that this series has been impactful, because I have been learning actually, and I've learned quite a number of things from this series. Okay, so moving on from the last episode, Love Celebrates Others, It Doesn't Compete. That properly cooked beans with plantain on it. Okay, so moving on to today's episode, Love Does Not Show Off. And I promise you, this is a well-pounded yam with vegetable soup. And so the topic, love does not show off. We use that word a lot, show off. When you want to talk about that girl that makes everything about that boy that likes to brag and boasts, about the things that he have. And okay, so we're going to be learning in this episode is what does show off really mean, right? Is it just limited to those things that we know it to be, or is there more? So follow me. Now let's get right into it. What does it mean to show off? Showing off means needing what you have to prove who you are. So showing off is not just about what you have. It is you needing that thing that you have to prove who you are, making what you have the basis of your identity. And so before moving on to reasons why people show off, the dangers of showing off, and other things that we're going to be learning, like I said, this one are pounded yam. Okay, so I would like to talk about identity, because a lot of people, they cannot differentiate between who they are and what they have, who they are and what they possess. So what is identity? In psychology, identity is an enduring sense of who you are. The beliefs, the values, the characteristics that makes you, you. Identity answers the question, who am I? And I want you to take note. I did not say identity answers the question, what do I have or what do I possess? It answers the question, who am I? And like I said earlier, some people cannot differentiate who they are from what they have. Okay, so I will be giving examples to buttress this point. For example, a footballer suffers an injury to his ACL. ACL is anterior cruciate ligament. So for the non-scientists, ACL is a connective tissue in the knee. It connects the femur, that's the thigh bone, to the shin bone, the tibia. Now, he suffers an injury to his ACL, and then the doctor tells him, you cannot play football anymore. And because of this news, he falls into serious depression. To the point that he begins to say that he feels miserable. He does not even think he can make meaning out of life anymore. Now, this is not simply because football was taken from him. This is because he does not know who he is outside football. He has tied his identity to football. He has tied his identity to being a footballer. Now, another example. Let's say a rich man suddenly the tide turns and he became poor. And because of this, he also cannot make meaning out of life. He's even saying, I don't even feel like I exist in this world anymore. I just feel like I've disappeared. This person also, it is not simply because of losing wealth. It is because he does not know who he is outside being wealthy. He has tied his identity to his material possession. And the last example that I'll be giving to buttress this is quite sensitive, and I would try as much as possible, to maintain the balance. And the example is about losing a loved one. And yes, that can be very painful to lose a loved one. I can relate to this. Yes, I can relate to this. And losing a loved one can even make a person's life pause for a while, because you have to grieve, you have to process things, a lot of things coming at you. Even some people end up blaming themselves. Maybe if I've done this more, maybe if I've done this, at that point in time, your life even has to even take a pause. You have to take a pause from a lot of things. But when it gets to that point where you want to commit suicide because you lost a loved one, and this is not me downplaying pain at all. Like I said, I can relate. I also lost a loved one, someone really close to my heart, like someone that I love so much. Like after God, she's the next person, and I don't think there's anybody, like she has no rival in my heart. That space, there's no rival. So I can really relate to losing a loved one. So I'm not downplaying pain or grief. I even said it earlier that your life even has to take, a pause because of, a lot of things that you have to process. But when it now gets to you want to commit suicide because you lost someone, or maybe you now start saying your life is miserable and that you cannot make meaning out of life anymore because you lost someone, then we can see enmeshed identity playing out, identity fusion. And like the simple explanation for this is that you have tied your identity to that person. So the question is, what makes up identity? Many psychologists emphasize that healthy identity should be built on things that are relatively stable. And they pointed out to things like values, convictions, character, relationships, and a sense of purpose. And there is wisdom in that. But I would like to add this, because even these things that they have mentioned require intentionality. Values don't remain healthy by accidents. Character does not stay strong by accident. Convictions does not remain sound by accident. Life has a way of testing all of them. A person can be kind today, and if they are not careful, just one painful experience will make them a bitter person tomorrow. A person can have strong values today and compromise tomorrow because they were not paying attention. And this is why we have to constantly examine ourselves. This is why I said it requires intentionality. We have to constantly examine ourselves. Ask questions. Ask yourself questions. Am I still kind? Am I still honest? Am I still living by the convictions I know is right? Now think of it. Status changes, title changes, position changes, beauty changes, even people's opinion, it changes. Our understanding matures as we grow. So if almost everything around us is capable of changing, what then do we build our life on? What? To me, for me rather, the answer is God. Because God does not change. And our purpose comes from Him, so does our identity. You know, when you know whose you are, you will not spend your life trying to prove who you are. I'll take that again. When you know whose you are, you will not spend your life trying to prove who you are. There is something security does. It removes the need to prove yourself. And when I say prove yourself, I mean show off. There's a way you feel secured and you don't need validation, because basically that is one of the reasons people show off. Insecurity, the need for validation, and we will get there. But I just needed to say that, to buttress this point. When you know whose you are, you will not spend your life trying to prove who you are. Security, it removes the need to prove yourself. And I believe that the deepest security a human being can ever have is security in God, because God does not change. That is a constant, like a constant in every equation. He does not change. And I'll wrap up with this. I believe that this episode connects beautifully with what I discussed in the last episode. Love, celebrate others. It doesn't complete the last episode. Before this, if you have not watched it, go and watch it. In the last episode, I said, in a life of purpose, there is very little room for envy, because your satisfaction no longer comes from knowing that you are ahead of people. Your satisfaction comes from knowing that you are where you are supposed to be, doing what you are supposed to do, when we talked about purpose. And the same principle applies here, because when you're rooted in God and you are faithfully pursuing the purpose He has given you, you will not feel that need to prove yourself to people. And when I say prove yourself, like show off, impress people, because you have the mindset. You are not of the mindset that I need what I have to prove who I am. No, you're already secured in God. Your identity has been built on the unchanging God, and so you celebrate your success, not with the mindset of I need it to prove who I am. My success defines me. No, you celebrate your success as, in fact, an addition. God, thank you, right? But it is not who you are. So when you know whose you are, you will not spend your life trying to prove who you are. So I want you to ask yourself, who am I? Can I tell who I am apart from my achievements? Apart from what I have? Have I spent my life, have I been building my life based on my achievement, based on what I have? Can I really separate who I am from what I have? Please ask yourself these questions. So, I draw the curtain here. Stay tuned for the next episode, but bye for now.